Thank you for joining me today for my masterclass, which is on engagement first, transforming behavior through active learning in the school English classroom. So first, I will start by introducing myself. I'm your host for today. My name is Zainab. I'm currently a student obtaining a master's degree in education from International Teachers University. I have a professional certificate in teaching and learning from Surasa. I hold a level 5 and 6 diploma in teaching, a TESOL diploma from ITT International Institute from New York, a diploma in special need, a postgraduate degree in teaching. I have a teacher training certificate from College of Birmingham and a bachelor degree in architecture from University of Jordan. I'm a certified read theory educator. I hold a certified teacher license from the Ministry of Education in UAE. I've been working as a secondary English teacher since 2017. I've hosted my first masterclass with Sorasa in 2024, and it was about student ownership in modern classrooms. My hobbies are drawing, painting, and baking. So to start with, our learning objectives for today are going to be define active learning and how it links to students' engagement. Our second learning outcomes will be identify key factors that influence student engagement in the classroom. Apply high engagement routines to increase focus and minimize off-task actions. And our final learning outcome is design English lessons that integrate learner-centered approaches and foster positive learning habits. Our takeaways for today, by the end of the session, active learning strengthens students' engagement and enhances positive behavior. Teachers' decisions and strategies influence how actively students participate in their learning, and students engage more deeply when they have meaningful voice, choice, and responsibility in their learning. So to start with, we're going to have an icebreaker. A poll will be appearing on your screens. I want you to think of one strategy that successfully engages your students during English. We have think, pair, share, mini whiteboards, role plays, debates, interactive quizzes and games, and storytelling or real world examples. I want you to select which strategy you think it really successfully engages your students during English. Okay, results will soon be shared on the screen. You just need to select one choice. Okay, now we're going to move on to understanding what is active learning. Now, active learning is a teaching approach where all students are asked to engage in the learning process. Now, students here engage in small groups or in large groups, and this can be related to any skills you're trying to build in your classroom. It includes interaction, collaboration, and decision making, and it provides an opportunity for all students to engage with the content and practice their skills. It promotes ownership thinking among the learners. So we'll start with active learning in the classroom. I would like to start with a quote from John Dewey. Learning is an active process that requires hand-on experience rather than rote memorization of facts. So here, understand is that students usually learn best when they are emotionally engaged. when they are involved in tasks rather than just listening. They learn more effectively when col- collaborate among each other, when they share their ideas and experiences, when they share what they have understand with their partners. And these strategies usually involve active processing, and the shift here is transferred from the teacher to the students. So applying active learning during your English classes. So students here get used to following routines and transitions. They follow teacher instructions. They participate in discussions, which makes them actively involved in the learning, and they be able to use the provided materials appropriately to help complete their tasks. So this can be any type of hands-on activities you provide for your students, and includes also access to learning apps and digital resources. Now we're talking about active learning and emotionally engagement. Now students are they learn better by doing. So this is why active learning is based on the principle we learn better by doing than by listening. So students usually, when they're involved and they have a task in their hand, they're working, they're actually involved here, and that's when they end up providing a better results and achieving their outcomes. So I want you to share in the chat box, like, what do you think? Like, which task, which activity have you implemented in your classrooms that you notice it helped your students get highly engaged more? So you can just share your answers in the chat box. Anything you implement in your classes? Role play. Okay. Anything else than role plays? Okay, mostly role plays, I agree, because students usually are highly engaged in role plays. Let me share. One second. Yes. Now, a cognitive engagement. Students can be actively engaged when they are actively engaged in a lesson. Now, it builds their cognitive engagement. Here, they are linking their prior knowledge with the new knowledge gained in the classroom in order to produce an outcome. And that outcome could be a result of their learning, but it could be in different ways, which meets their interest and their abilities. So if we look here, how can we do that in our English classrooms? We can promote this through class discussions, group projects, problem-solving activities, and tasks which are related to case studies. If you see here, three different groups were working on the same assigned project, but three of them ended up presented it in different ways. The picture here, I have a theater. This was a group actually of low ability learners who wanted to produce their project, but through a puppet show. And I was fine with the choice since they are still reflecting their understanding of the lesson, and they were able to achieve their learning outcomes. I'm going to share a video now about what is engagement and how is engagement in the classroom. So I want you to take notes of what type of engagement do you notice mostly, what are they speaking about, and which actions can help us identify the types of engagement.
I know that our traditional school setting is not engaging.
And I could see it in a lot of schools where kids don't like to come to school. They don't want to come to school because it's boring.
They don't get to actually do all of the types of learning that our world has to offer.
it is active, it is participatory.
Lots of talking.
Noisy.
They're taller.
Spark and energy.
To me, engagement looks like I'm happy every day to be here with you. And I can't wait to see what you learn and what I learn and what we learn together.
And in my classroom, our motto is play is learning.
You would be surprised how much joy just letting them learn through play is for them. I can't wait to get to work the next day. So I know my students can't wait to get to school. And I think that's what this is all about.
They're like, your room is so loud. What is happening here? I'm like, well, yeah, learning's happening.
To some people, to the untrained ear, it seemed like, oh, this classroom is a lot of fun. Fun alone will not teach kids. The trick here is to make the teaching at a high level of rigor in a way that appeals to kids. And great teachers do that all the time.
Really think about what play is. They're learning social-emotional skills, language development, critical thinking skills.
The more we play, the better we get. And if we stop playing, then what are we doing? We lose engagement, we lose motivation, we're no longer present.
Great curriculum leads to instruction, great teaching leads to learning.
We want them to grow up and be innovators and entrepreneurs and solve all the world's problems. But how do they do those things if they're disengaged?
If kids aren't feeling successful, if they don't have hope for the future, they're not going to want to stay in school.
The students want the intentional time to be able to get creative and hands-on because so much of it now is screen focused.
The teacher can be up there teaching their heart out, but if the kids are bored and disinterested, they're not learning any of the stuff.
Most people learn better when they actually can do and experience.
I want them to be able to learn about the plants and then plant the plants.
There are so many experiences that some children would never have if it weren't for a classroom and if it weren't for a teacher. I just think we have to keep showing up every day and just chip away little by little.
I have absolute faith in our education system. We already know what works, right? We as superintendents and those who are lawmakers and policymakers need to ensure that we don't lose that.
We forget to talk about our secondary students, middle school and high schools, and I've seen those kids have just as much joy as elementary does.
Everybody's involved, they're asking questions. It's not just play, not just math, not just making mistakes, you know, it's allowing them to be a kid, right?
And I've seen students, especially our high school students, that need that opportunity to be kids again.
We want that for every child, to have that experience at school.
That's true student engagement. When that happens, it is visible, it is palpable, it is noticeable, and it is irreplaceable. It's magic.
Okay, I want you to share your thoughts now on the chat box. What did you notice about the type of engagement? Any thoughts you have about the video? Anything, please just share your answers. What did you mostly notice about the video? Allowing children to be kids and learning needs to be fun. Okay, that is true. Anything else? Engaging children. Yes, we need to engage them through fun, more fun activities. Yes, that is true. Okay, hands-on activities. Yes, that is when they actually learn the best. Thank you for sharing the answers. I will get you engaged in more slides as well. Okay, I'm going to Okay. Now, by the end of this video, we have achieved our first learning outcome, which is define elective learning and how it links to students' engagement. Now we are going to speak about factors that influence student engagement. In your English classrooms, there are different factors that influence the students. Now, as teachers, we need to try to build our learners' confidence and try to get them engaged. Now, modeling is one important way to get your learners engaged. If you look at this mind map, we've created it together on the whiteboard in the classroom. All students were engaged. That's the reason you see different fonts, different handwritings over here with different colors. We were studying an extract from a novel about a student, about a girl who's the age of my students. She had to change countries and move with her parents to Russia. She did not know the language, and she was mentally suffering a lot, and this created some empathy among my students. So they were eager to know more, and they were participating well in it. So this is related to how we're supposed to engage our contact to real world scenarios and build the empathy among our learners. So it was a simple mind map. However, I kept the option for my learners to display what they've learned in their own way. So if you look at the first picture here, it is a mind map, which is kind of similar to the one we did in the class, but instead of the circles, the student chose to draw it as clouds. But she kept it the same traditional layout, maybe I'll label it as. But then if we move to the bottom, the girl here is quite creative. She chose to write the name of the main character on broken pieces to reflect how the character was mentally, how she was feeling about a sudden shift to a new country when she doesn't know the language, she has no friends, and she's been rejected as well by her surroundings. The students, her classmates, no one would talk to her. So she reflected how the girl was feeling through the broken, shredded glasses, and then she kept all the information about the main character all around it. And then I have here another learner who is an artist. You can see all the work she usually enjoys presenting her work in more creative way. She decided to have visual cues for each circle of the mind map. So by looking at the visual cues she kept, I would know what information she was providing in each um, in each area of the mind map. So here we will all agree that all the learners have achieved the same learning outcomes, but they presented it in different way. And in this task, all the learners were actively engaged and no one was behind. I'll show another example of how we can also engage our learners. Now, for example, if you want to teach your students about persuasive language, it's always better to bring speech on articles which are from written by real people, bring them from real newspapers, and let the students analyze it. This will let them engage more with those people and understand the meaning behind those speeches, and also let them analyze the language techniques on those articles themselves or the speeches. And also you can use, if you see in this image and the image here, we were using iPads, images from iPads and chats, messages. Students here were analyzing brevity devices. They were correcting any grammatical errors, punctuation mistakes, and vocabulary. This was making them also highly engaged because it's something they're using all the time when they're always chatting with their family and friends. And this helped them analyze well. And if you look at this picture here and the bottom one, students here were writing a profile about the eldest person in their family. They were asked to collect information about the grandparents, could be a grandfather or grandmother, and write a profile about them. So they were also requested to first create the information as a mind map and then write in paragraphs different stages of that person. Now, this task was highly engaging for the students because they had a chance to create bonds with their grandparents, and they ended up calling them on a regular basis, especially most of them, their grandparents were located in different countries. So they had a chance to call them, ask them questions, learn more about their grandparents since they were born until now. I remember students were coming happy to the class, sharing with me stories they've learned about their grandparents. And one of them was telling me that she came to know her grandfather married two ladies before her grandmother. She didn't know about it. And only because of this task she came to know. So it was actually a good chance for the students to have stronger family bonds. And at the same time, they are creating a task which is required from them. So this way, when you relate your task to real life scenarios, real stories, students are going to be highly engaged. And again, this is another quote by John Dewey when he said, education is not preparation for life. Education is life itself. Collaboration is really important as well in the English classrooms. Students, when they collaborate, they come up with better results. When they work as a group, we all know that students, when they work as a group, they do have their arguments, they do have their fights sometimes. But here, as teachers, we can always come in, we can advise, we can listen to them, we can divide the roles if they did not have any clear structure to follow. But usually at the end, all of them will come up with good results. Okay, so I want you to share now anything that you have done in your classroom, any task you have completed, which showed that collaboration among your learners really brought in excellent results. Anything you have tried to implement where you made them all interact. Anything. And then please also you can mention what was the task you wanted them to complete. Okay, debated on topics like small families and big families. Okay, what was exactly that you debated when you were speaking about small families and big families? Is it related to them living together? Yeah, I agree. I'm going to come to the point about debates and how it can be chaotic sometimes and give an alternative option for that. I'm going to reach to that in another slide. Okay, so I'll move to another slide now. Before that, before I move to the debate I spoke to you about, I want to share two different scenarios, and I want you to give me your feedback in the chat box. Now, imagine there's a lesson where you're teaching grammar, and we know that grammar can be boring for many learners, and there's usually low engagement during the grammar lessons. So, you're giving them a grammar worksheet, they have to complete it. A few students are only maybe getting involved, and the rest will start misbehaving, getting out of their chairs, talking, whispering. So I want you to, if you can share your answer in the chat box. What do you think is the primary cause of this disengagement? And which active learning strategies you think you can implement to stop this or reduce it? Okay, attention span, differentiation activity. Can you give me examples? What do you want to differentiate exactly? How can we do it? Grammar lesson is boring, yes, and it's not going to help engage the students. So what suggestions do you have? What do you think we can do? We want to teach them grammar, but in a different way. What suggestions do you think we can implement to make it more engaging? Okay, so according to the child's understanding, so based on their needs and their interest, maybe we can have them take it on their device instead of a printed paper. We know most of the learners will engage more when the assessment is on their device. Maybe we can allow also some learners to discuss with their partner. If we have two learners who are of low ability, maybe they can discuss with their partners. Okay, I'm going to share another scenario now. It's a scenario of a group work. We have a group work and we have asked the students to work together. However, you will notice now that some of the students are playing or talking, they're just switched off, and one of the students is actually controlling everything. Maybe he or she decides to do all the work because they don't want the others, or they believe the others are not going to bring up the work to the high quality that he or she believes they can produce on their own. So, what do you think here could cause the disengagement, and what part of the structure needs to be improved over here? And how can we increase the participation among the group members and let them feel they can take ownership of their own learning? What suggestions do we have? You can share your answers in the chat box. Very good. We should make sure that they have clear roles. Each student know what is it to achieve. Very good. Yes, teacher can interfere here also and divide the work among the learners to make sure each one is carrying their own part, and then at the end they can collaborate together to choose the final. Yeah. Okay. Here we have achieved our second learning objective, which is identify key factors that influence student engagement in the classroom. Now we are going to speak about high engagement routines in the classroom. Now, when routines are predictable, students spend less time drifting and misbehaving. They know what is expected from them. They get used to that, and then it will help them to increase their focus and their participation and during the lesson. So here we are going to start with some activities that we can implement in our classrooms that are going to Think Fair Share. I think most of us are already familiar with it and we apply it usually during our classes. And the good thing is that Think Fair Share can be implemented more than once during the lesson, according to your needs. And students get used to it. You just need to first guide them through the structure of it, where they silently think for 1 or 2 minutes. Then they can share their thoughts with their partner and then share to the whole class. However, sometimes it might you can change it. Like the two pairs can later pair up with another pair, and then they become a group of four where they can share their ideas before sharing it to the whole class. You can always have the cold calling. This way, you're going to ensure that all pairs are ready to share their answers because they don't know who you're going to call on to share the answers. And then there's also silent think pair share, which means the students here do not need to talk. They can use their whiteboards or notes in order to communicate and share their ideas. What you can do as a teacher, you can have a timer, then students will get used to there is a specific time for this task to be completed. And then when students also need to understand that when the timer is over, they need to make sure they are going to share one answer as a pair, not more than one. And a good way to improve the inclusive learning environment in your classroom, you can make sure that everyone is involved in this. So you can rotate your partners. Like today, maybe your partner two students together, tomorrow let them be pairs with another. And that this way, every student is going to make sure they have a chance to collaborate and communicate with another person in the classroom. It will help build strong relationships among the learners. Second one we have here is mini whiteboards. This is also students enjoy a lot. Students of our abilities, they enjoy using their mini whiteboards. Have them ready in your classroom with the markers, and whenever you need them, just distribute them. You can easily use them during the whole lesson for vocabulary check, for grammar, Even for reading comprehension, you can share a passage on the board, and then students, you can just ask them, write the main idea, describe the character, or what do you think is going to happen next. They can jot all their ideas on the whiteboard, and then you can just count 3, 2, 1, show me the answers. All of them will lift their whiteboard up at the same time. It will be good for you to do a quick scan for affirmative checking. You'll be able to identify the students who are struggling and the students who are able to answer. You just have to make sure you are paying attention to every single student when they are sharing their answers. And then this will help also all of them be engaged. No one's going to be left out, because you will notice when you ask them to take notes in their notebooks, many of them tend to get distracted and they don't write. But when you give them the whiteboards, all of them are actively involved. And you can use the mini whiteboards for individual tasks, for pairs, and even for group work. And we're going to move on to role plays. As we agreed at the beginning of the session, that is really highly engaging. Students love it because it's related to real life scenarios. So you can give them roles if they're unclear. For example, if you look at the first picture we were learning about vocabulary related to travels and travel agencies and traveling at the airport. And we needed the students to practice using those vocabularies. So what I made sure is that they've been taking different roles. It's been rotated among them. So everyone has a chance to participate and engage. And this is related to real life scenarios. So you'll find students more eager to take part. You can provide sentence starters for the less able learners just to help them start. How are they going to speak? What should they speak about? And then if you want a role play, for example, the second picture I have, we were studying about the myths, and then about the Pandora box and reading comprehension questions and answers. But when this was turned into a role play, students understood it way better than how it was read in the class. All of them were actively engaged. So this will help them build the skills they need, which are communication skills and listening skills, and also it will help build their confidence. For people who shared in the chat and said that debates can get chaotic sometimes and out of control. That is true, because debates usually we have a group of 4 or 5 against 4 or 5, and then the rest of the learners are actually passive learners because they're not taking part in it. And sometimes they tend to interrupt each other and can get noisy. And we do all have some learners who, when they're interrupting, they might get a bit aggressive. So you can think about the Socratic seminar as another choice. This can be applied to a large number of learners. You can divide your class into have 2 circles, inner circle and an outer circle. The inner circle will be having a discussion on a topic you can give them. And at that time, the out circle, their job is just to observe and take notes. And the best thing here is that students will learn how to listen to each other. Each one will get a chance to speak, and each one is going to learn the skills that I have to listen to my partner before I speak. And you can also provide them with sentence starters. Like example, you can see here, you can tell them, I think, I disagree, or building on your idea. This will help them build the skills they need in order to take active part in the seminar. And after 10 minutes, you can swap between the 2 circles. The inner circle becomes the outer circle, and the outer circle becomes the inner circle. So here, everyone is going to take part in the discussion. Everyone will share their idea, and everyone also will build the skill of observing and taking notes. And here, you are out of it as a teacher. It's a completely student-led discussion. The only thing you can do is just observe. Maybe you can take notes of how the communication is happening among the learners, how are they participating, and how are they developing the required skill for a structured dialogue. So now I'm going to share a poll. I wanted to see from these activities, which one do you think you can use in your classroom this week? Which one do you think is possible to start implementing? And which one do you think is the hardest to implement from these 4? Okay, mini whiteboards and role plays. Okay, role play. Okay. Academic issues and could not provide the whiteboards on a large scale. Okay, yeah. I mean, sometimes you can ask the students to bring the whiteboards if the school cannot provide it. They can bring their mini whiteboards with them. Um, okay. Yeah. Socratic seminar could be hard depending on, I think, the space you have in your classroom and also maybe the types of tables and chairs the student have. If you have them flexible, you'll be able to move them around and put them back. It will be easier. Some schools, they have the chairs connected with the tables for the students. I think those would be harder to push aside to have enough space for the Socratic seminar. Think Pair Share is the easiest one to implement. It's the because you don't require enough space. You don't need extra space for that. And if you don't need whiteboards also for it. But again, I mean, if the school cannot provide whiteboards, you can always ask the students to bring their own. They are affordable and they will enjoy it. Okay, so summary of the high engagement routines. We said routines make engagement predictable. Students know what is expected from them the next day. And key reminders, active learning means fewer disruptions. When students think and talk and interact with behavior drops, the most common issue we have is that students are walking around the classrooms or going to their friend to ask for a pen or a highlighter, and this always causes disruption. But if you're going to provide them with tasks that allows them to get out of their place and engage in order to achieve something. This way, there's no disruption happening any longer, and they are able to move, but in a positive way because it's a requirement now rather than them misbehaving. So now our third learning objective is achieved. Apply high engagement routine to increase focus and minimize off-task actions. Now we are going to start with designing English lessons with active learning. Now, our lessons should be designed for thinking and participation in order to improve our learners' behavior in the classroom. So we need to consider that our lessons are created for participation, not hoping for the students to participate. And we need to have it well structured with interactive tasks. If you're going through your lesson and we as teachers know, okay, this is the place where I think my students are going to start misbehaving and they're not going to pay attention because it's kind of maybe has more teaching time where a teacher is the one who's talking for a long time. So you can try, even if there's talking time, try to engage your students during that time. Ask them what do they think. Ask them if they have any questions. This way, when they know you are considering their opinions, even during your time, your teaching time, they will be actively involved in it. So engagement here grows when classrooms are well structured. We are going to see learner-centered design. Now, consider that your lessons are starting from the students' needs, their interests, and their readiness levels. This way, I mean, where your students are going to know that they are going to be, you are considering them in your planning, they are going to end up being active participants in your lesson. For example, if you want to annotate a model or paragraph, like last week I had annotating poems with my year 8 students. We shared a poem on the smartboard, and then I was helping them identify how can they annotate it, how are we supposed to do it. They were engaging this way before they had to move to annotating their own poems. So this way you can help them. They will listen to you, but in an active way because they are actually providing the answers. You're just guiding them, and then they'll be able to work individually. Positive learning habits. Now, if you're going to build it among your students, you're going to guide them how to practice them. They are going to slowly start doing it on their own. If you're going to model how a checklist can be used, they will start using it because you notice sometimes you give a checklist to the students. Beginning of the year, if I keep it in my students' notebooks, they're not used. When you come and you check the notebooks, the checklists are left empty. But when you practice and you model how it's supposed to be used by every task, or maybe you can start with peer assessment. They can use the checklist for each other to see, to evaluate each other's work, and then they'll move on to using it after every task. This way, they're going to build the routine and they're going to know that this is a habit that I have to implement every time I'm given a checklist. We have predictable structures and routines. Again, this related to the point I just spoke about routines reduce confusion and off-task behavior. So for example, during Think, Pair, and Share, students, when you're going to build with them the time management, the structure, when are we supposed to think and share our thoughts with our partners, and then with the whole class, this is going to become a routine and a well-structured task. They will know it once you tell them, okay, now we're going to move on to think, pair, share. They know what's expected from them and they know how to do it. I'm going to share with you two different lessons now. One is before applying active learning strategies, and the second one is after. So before, the teacher talks for about 15 minutes about narrative writing. Obviously, all of us have seen this. Some students are going to be taking notes and listening to you. Others are going to start getting disengaged. They'll start turning, talking to their partners, talking to their friends, and whispering. And you will see here the classroom is slowly getting noisy. But if you can change it, teach the same lesson, but change it. You can start with a hook. Students read the two short narratives on the board. You can share them on the smartboard and then ask them to read it and decide which one do you think is stronger as an opening and why. Now they are going to think about their answers because they need to provide reasons. And then you can give them a mini task, which is highlighting the strong verbs, strong adjectives, or any language devices they found within this narrative piece of writing. Here also you're asking their opinions and you're asking them to identify things within the passage. You're going to keep them engaged. Then you can apply think, pair, and share. What makes this opening interesting? They're going to collaborate here to share their answers. Also, you can use after that mini whiteboards. Students, you can suggest that they can rewrite a sentence or improve it. The higher ability learners, maybe you can ask them to rewrite the whole opening, what changes or improvements they will suggest. And then by the end of the lesson, you can have an exit ticket asking them one technique they've learned today that they can implement it tomorrow in their writing task when they are going to start writing a narrative piece of writing. So definitely we know the before one is the passive lesson where students are actually passive learners. And the second one is where you are building active learning strategies. And here we achieved our fourth learning outcome, which is design English lessons that integrate learner-centered approaches and foster positive learning habits. I'm going to share some facts about engagement and active learning. Learning-centered planning is a proof that its studies have shown that students learn 20 to 30% more when lessons are close to their interests and their areas of interest, their abilities, and when it's suitable also to their ages. Now, engagement is higher in lessons that have real-world problems and problem solving, with studies have shown that the higher engagement rates are higher by 22%. And when there are predictable routines and structures, it shows that up to 40% fewer behavior disruptions are happening in the classrooms. When you're building positive learning habits, it shows that the class discussions that boost the students' comprehension skills by 12%. When you're implementing active learning and collaboration, now also it shows that students who work in groups 25% more engaged than students who are working individually. And the final point is classroom management and behavior. Positive structured classroom environment reduces disruptions and it improves social and emotional outcomes among the learners. So our conclusion for today's masterclass is that engaging learning has a lasting impact. When students are actively participating in the learning becomes a long process. They don't tend to forget it quickly. But when you're just teaching them about just writing something, tomorrow or the after, they're just going to forget it. So active learning also transfers the behavior. When they're well engaged, they're more motivated, and they are here taking ownership of their own learning. So as a teacher, we need to make sure that we are well thoughtful when we are planning our strategies and how the opportunities we're providing for our students, allowing them to grow and improve and build their confidence. Our learning objectives for today are define active learnings and how it links to students' behavior, emotional, and cognitive engagement. Identify key factors that influence student engagement in the classroom. Apply high engagement routines to increase focus and minimize off-task actions. Design English lessons that integrate learner-centered approaches and foster positive learning habits. And the takeaways were active learning strengthens students' engagement and enhances positive behavior. Teachers' decisions and strategies influence how actively students participate in learning. Students engage more deeply when they have a meaningful voice and choice and responsibility in their learning. I'm going to share a few frequently asked questions. You may be asking or wondering about the same. Now, can active learning work for all students? The answer is yes. Strategies can be adapted to support your learners. You can differentiate them easily to meet your learner's interests and abilities. Even your instructions can be differentiated. And you can make sure that the students are working collaboratively and they have hands-on activities. How can I measure if active learning is working in my classroom? Now you can track it through observations. When your students are engaged in working in groups or in pairs, you as a teacher are going to be the facilitator. You can go around, monitor, have your checklist, have short surveys, have your observation records about each learner. And this way you'll be able to keep track of how effectively they are working in your classroom. And a third question, do I need a lot of time or resources to implement active learning? The answer is no. You can use your simple daily resources every day and group discussions, hands-on tasks. You can even have the role plays, the interviews, any interactive exercises will work with your active learning strategies. Here are the list of the references used for today's masterclass. If you want any time to go back to any recorded masterclasses by other learners of international teachers, universities, or any panelists, you can always follow them on Instagram and on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining me today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to just post them in the chat and I'll be answering them.